Hey doctors, Dr. Minecraft here. Welcome back to another video. Wait, today I am back with another history of UST. Now let's get right into it. Well, where we left off, we left on, well, what could be the brink of possibly another war. But if you read pretty much the thumbnail and the title, you know what happens. Now, after the European War ended and we gained territory from Federation and Hispania, essentially we were notified from by Ludin that or to be specific, High Command, that the Federation and Hispania had been in contact with Eldoa and Magna, who didn't help, and they were planning to form an alliance. However, in the possibility that we were to be invaded, we had allies, being the Allied Kingdom, Turkmen Principalities, as well as the Unified States and the Achaemenid Dominion, with pretty much Unified States and Achaemenid Dominion pretty much being neutral, but they were willing to join, which, spoiler, they would eventually. And what had happened? Well, everything went well. It's been going fine. However, what I can say that essentially, we had a possible traitor to the mortal race in High Command. In fact, I had one of the generals in High Command brought into a interrogation room for questioning. Ludin would be in charge of updating about the situation concerning the nation, as one of the high commanding generals might be a traitor to the mortal race, and Ludin was alright with that. Everything going fine until it happened. All of a sudden, one day, Ludin informed us something shocking. The Federation had declared war on us. They had been mobilizing troops and were preparing to invade our borders. Fact, thing is, when I asked about Hispania, Magna, and Eldoa, they've all declared war on us. And as such, World War II began. They all mobilized their troops and were preparing to invade. And it seemed like we're all working together. I had my suspicion of being X behind it. So we began. In fact, the Federation was the first to invade. While I was questioning why the others haven't done the same, and actually they have crossed the border, Ludin said that they haven't. But it's possible that we're waiting for the Federation to make more progress before they invaded. We were waiting for the right time. Everything going well. In fact, thing is, what may shock you is that in the European War, UST pushed back the Federation and Eldoa on two fronts. But however, despite fighting on one front, UST was being pushed back hard by the Federation. As Ludin explained, the Federation were using new tactics that we hadn't seen before, and was making it harder for our Air Force to keep them back. We were doing our best, but the Federation were making it difficult. I told Ludin to observe their tactics so we can adapt them into our tactics. Ludin agreed. Everything went well. However, that would not go well. In fact, one day we received a visitor, let's say, Mary Sue. In fact, Sue revealed that she was hired to pretty much have us killed. As it turned out, she was paid by the former emperor and someone from the Federation, General Schmidt. In fact, thing is, he was very powerful, but however, This attempted regicide failed, and Mirasu ended up joining our side. 2 months and 23 days after, we received news. News that would be a disappointment, you could say. Ludin called us down, and me and Tanya rushed to High Command, where Ludin informed us news. He said, and I quote, "The Federation is about to capture our capital. We need to do something now." In fact, on that day, 2 months and 23 days after the war began, we fled the capital, leaving it behind. It was hard for us, the Imperial family, to leave the capital, but our safety was at risk, so we fled. The next day, I had our Air Force mainly target crucial military targets of the Federation and our enemies. It was a good idea. Duno said it was a good idea. That would weaken their military, make it harder for them to fight us. In fact, it will show them that we were serious about winning the war. And we were. Everything progressed hard. Then, 3 months and 1 day after the war began, Tanya says that she had been in contact with our allies. They were finally willing to help us. They were sending troops and supplies, and they were also going to help us with a secret project. That secret project would be something in our world the Americans did. That pretty much ended World War II on the Pacific Front and around the world. And if you know World War II, you probably know where this is going. Then, 3 months and 8 days after the war began, the tests had began. In fact, I think it was powerful. And we were going to use it to force the war's surrender. That's how it was going to be. 3 months and 15 days after the war broke out, we warned pretty much the Federation that we were going to drop a bomb on one of their cities. That city was somewhat important to them. That city's name was Ispagna City. See, I shall quote Hestia when I asked her about has the bomb been dropped. She said, "Yes, it has. We warned our government and that we were going to drop the bomb, and they didn't believe us. When the bomb dropped, they realized that we were serious. It was a huge blow to their morale. It was going well. In fact, 4 months and 6 days later, it finally happened. Good news arrived as Tanya looked at me. She said that she had some good news. The enemy had asked for a peace treaty. They were willing to surrender. They were willing to negotiate the terms. It looked like we won the war. And it was not the Federation. It was all of our enemies. They announced that they surrendered, bringing an end to the Second World War. And with that, me and Tanya and High Command flew back to the capital, where the terms were drawn up. In the end, the Federation will lose more territory, but it would only be a little bit, hardly recognizable. You can see in the right corner of pretty much UST. But Expagna lost pretty much a bit more territory. In fact, we didn't take any territory from Eldoa or Magna Romelli. But however, all 4 of our enemies had to pay reparations. In fact, we didn't really trust the Federation since they seemed to be pretty much the ones who invaded us first. So I forced the Federation to sign a non-aggression pact. And Eldoa Spagna was issued a warning. If they ever invaded and went to war with us again, it will come at the cost of their sovereignty. That's right. If UST and Spagna were to go to war again, it would be the last time Spagna fights in a war, as they will be absorbed completely if that happens. And as such, UST got bigger. Not pretty much as big as it was from the peace treaty of the European War, but however, it got a bit bigger. The world took notice, as now UST held the power of nuclear weapons and destruction. In fact, the next day, it was a day that would be different. How so? The next day, the former emperor was put on trial. General Smith from the Federation was not present. However, we had injected Mary Sue with truth serum to make sure she would tell the truth. And according to her, the former emperor did try to assassinate me and my wife. In fact, the son was also involved. As such, the former emperor and his son was found guilty of attempted regicide and insurrection, as they wanted to retake the throne. And as such, they were sentenced to death the same day. Mary Sue I pardoned, told her to return to high command, that she would work with us. Everything was stressful, but we eventually came to it. In fact, when we went to high command the same day, we were informed by Ludin that the emperor's family was going to try and take the capital, and as such, expect a revolt. But it won't warrant a war, as it should be just one revolt. It should not dissolve something big. In fact, after we were informed of it, me and Tanya went to place to be executed. The execution. I gave a small speech, at which point I announced to UST that self-proclaimed God being next wanted our nation destroyed. He would show him the might of our nation's goddess, Mary Schmidt, and our might. In fact, I declared war on Being X, and the crowd loved it. I then ordered for the emperor who ruled before me and his son to be executed. As such, after that, me and Tanya, since you went to bed, what happened the next day? Did the revolt happen? I do not know, as yesterday was the day that the former emperor and his son was executed. In fact, I'll let you know about the fate of the nation, and if the former emperor and his family did try a revolt to overthrow us. I'll let you all know next time. If you liked the video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell to be notified whenever I make a new video. And so you be up to date and respond quick whenever I make a new video, or when pretty much again make a new history of UST. Tomorrow would be the 12th episode of the Emily Fallen Chronicles. At the time I'm making this and we publishing it. I hope you enjoy pretty much this episode and the last episode of the Emily Fallen Chronicles. See you later. Goodbye.